Tonight, we're breaking down one of the most savage, heart-stopping battles in lightweight history, a fight that redefined what it means to have a warrior's heart.
Round 1. As the opening bell rang, you could feel the electricity in the air. Poirier immediately went to work with leg kicks, targeting Holloway's base. Smart strategy. Take away a volume striker's mobility, and you take away his biggest weapon. But then, less than 2 minutes in, Poirier unleashed a left hand that would change the complexion of the entire fight. Boom! The sound echoed through the arena as Poirier's left hand found its mark. Holloway's legs wobbled, his eyes glazed over for just a moment, and suddenly everyone realized this wasn't going to be the Max Holloway show we were used to seeing. But Max Holloway didn't become a champion by folding under pressure. He fired back immediately, landing clean shots of his own, letting Poirier know that he wasn't going anywhere. The crowd erupted as both men stood in the center of the octagon and traded bombs. Poirier was throwing everything in his arsenal: left hooks, right hands, combinations that would have ended most fighters' nights. Each shot that landed sent shockwaves through Holloway's body, and yet, somehow, impossibly, Max stayed on his feet. The heart of a champion was on full display. Every time it looked like Holloway might go down, he found a way to survive, to fire back, to remind Poirier that he was in there with a true warrior. Round 2. As champions are defined not by how they perform when everything is going their way, but by how they respond when their backs are against the wall. As the second round began, Max Holloway had a choice to make. Would he wilt under the pressure, or would he show why he was considered one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the world? Poirier's power was the difference maker, and Max needed to be smarter about his positioning. The second round told a different story. This was vintage Max Holloway. Constant pressure, beautiful combinations, strikes flowing like water. He was mixing up his attacks beautifully, going to the body to slow down Poirier's powerful shots, then snapping upstairs with crisp combinations. For the first time in the fight, it looked like Holloway had found his rhythm. He was the aggressor now, pushing forward with that relentless pace that had broken so many fighters before. Poirier, perhaps feeling the effects of the energy he'd expended in round 1, seemed content to counter and look for his spots. The crowd began to rally behind Holloway. This is what they'd come to see, the Hawaiian hurricane in full effect. But then, with just over a minute left in the round, Poirier reminded everyone why he was so dangerous.
Round 3. Holloway came out determined to build on his success from round 2. His jab was finding its mark consistently, his movement was crisp, and most importantly, his confidence was growing with every exchange. The swelling around his right eye was concerning, but his vision seemed clear, and his timing was sharp. This is where Holloway's legendary cardio began to show. While most fighters start to slow down as the rounds accumulate, Max was maintaining the same blistering pace he'd set from the opening bell. His combinations were still flowing, his footwork was still crisp, and his pressure was relentless. Poirier, to his credit, was showing incredible heart of his own. The body shots from Holloway were taking their toll. You could see him taking deeper breaths between exchanges, his movements becoming slightly more labored. But every time it looked like the pace might be getting to him, he'd land a shot that would snap Holloway's head back and remind everyone of his devastating power. The round featured some of the most beautiful technical exchanges of the entire fight. The takedown attempt led to some incredible scrambling. Holloway defended beautifully, showing the well-rounded skills that had made him a champion. The crowd was on their feet as these two warriors battled for position, neither willing to give the other a moment's rest even in the grappling exchanges.
Round 4. The fourth round began with both fighters showing the wear and tear of 15 minutes of absolute war. Holloway's face was a mask of damage, his right eye nearly swollen shut, cuts beginning to open up from the accumulated punishment, but his spirit remained unbroken. Poirier, despite the incredible pace Holloway had been setting, looked remarkably fresh. His conditioning was holding up better than many had expected, and his power hadn't diminished one bit. If anything, he seemed to be timing Holloway's attacks even better as the fight progressed. The early minutes of the fourth round saw Holloway continue to press forward with that trademark aggression. But this is where experience and technique began to separate the two fighters. Poirier was no longer just throwing power shots, he was setting traps, creating angles, making Holloway pay for every forward movement. The turning point came midway through the round. Holloway, pressing forward as he always does, walked into a perfectly timed knee from Poirier. The impact was sickening. Blood immediately began flowing from a massive gash on Holloway's forehead, turning his face into a crimson mask. The sight was both beautiful and horrifying. Here was a warrior who was literally bleeding for victory, whose face was being systematically destroyed, and yet who refused to take a single step backward. The blood was flowing so freely that it was affecting his vision, but Holloway just wiped it away and kept coming forward. Round 5. As the fifth and final round began, the entire arena was on their feet. What they'd witnessed over the previous 20 minutes was already legendary, but neither fighter was ready to coast to the finish line. Holloway came out for the final round with the heart of a true champion. Despite the massive cut on his forehead, despite the swelling around his eye, despite absorbing more punishment than most fighters take in their entire careers, he was still pressing forward, still hunting for victory. This is where legends are made, not in the early rounds when you're fresh and confident, but in those final moments when your body is screaming at you to quit, when every instinct tells you to survive rather than to win. Max Holloway was fighting on pure heart now, and it was beautiful to watch. Poirier, knowing he was likely ahead on the scorecards, could have played it safe. He could have used his wrestling to control the round. Instead, he chose to engage in a firefight with one of the greatest volume strikers in the sport's history. When the final horn sounded, both fighters immediately embraced in the center of the octagon. The respect between these two warriors was evident. They had just put on a show for the ages, had pushed each other to places they'd never been before. That's what happens when heart meets power, when volume meets precision, when champions collide. And that's why this fight will be talked about for generations to come. What did you think of this incredible war? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more breakdowns of the greatest fights in combat sports history.